everybody.
Jesus Christ. I was not expecting you to do that, dude. I wasn't ready. You were smiling too big, and I was like, what's he going to do?
I had to, bro. I had to.
Today, we're going to cover another tragic case. We're going to cover the Caylee Anthony trial, or the murder of Caylee Anthony. I'm not sure which one to call it, to be honest, but
I don't know, the case that it's solved, but technically it's not solved. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's not technically. We'll start from the beginning, right? August 9th, 2005. That's when Caylee Marie Anthony is born. So everyone, I'm sure, knows who Caylee Anthony is, because it was a huge trial, and we were young. I think me and Jesus were in 7th, 8th grade-ish time when all this was happening, but even I remember it all happening. So first things first is it all started even back in 2005, before Caylee was even born. When Casey was pregnant, she even denied her pregnancy. She just lied about it back then. She said she didn't know who the dad was. Was it her fiance at the time, Jesse, or was it this other young guy? But he died in a car accident. That's just the kind of stuff she was saying, right? And still to this day, nobody knows who Caylee Anthony's father was. Yeah, nobody knows.
Damn, that's wild. Imagine she just had a when I stand with this random dude, and she asked him hey, do your thing 21, and then he did his thing, right? And then 9 months later, this little girl popped out, but she was like, shit, dude, I don't even remember what this guy looks like.
I mean, that's totally possible. What the hell? Can you hear my dogs barking? I'm sorry. We'll go forward a couple years, and then 2008 comes around, right? So June 15th was Father's Day.
Yeah.
And Caylee Anthony and her kid, Caylee Anthony, used to live with her parents in Orlando. They ended up getting in a fight on Father's Day, which was the 15th, and then her and the daughter left. At this point, her parents are like, whatever, dude, because they got in this huge fight. So she takes her family's car. It's kind of the car she was using, but it was her parents' car technically, and she just leaves. And she's talking to her parents throughout this, but she's not visiting them. They haven't seen the kid since the 16th, I believe. And then they're like, all right, what's going on, right? So at this point, it's a month later. This is July 15th. Cindy, who is Caylee Anthony's mother,
yes,
reports Caylee missing. And this is only because her parents learned that car that Casey had taken got impounded. So George, Caylee Anthony's dad, goes to retrieve the car from the impound, right?
Yeah.
And picks the car up and realizes it literally smells horrific. There's a horrible, horrible smell in there. They find a bag of trash in the trunk, so they take that out, and then they're like, what's going on, right? So Cindy contacts Casey and is like, why is the car impounded? Where's Caylee? What's going on? The car stinks. That's how it all starts. So Cindy, the mom, calls 911, says Caylee's been missing for a month at this point. We haven't seen her since, Father's Day. And the car smells and I quote, it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. That's what she told the 911 operators. And so, yeah, immediately the story starts off suspicious. Because why in the hell would someone be well, she has been missing for a month. I don't know. So I do not know how to pronounce this name, but it was the nanny is what she did. So on July 16th.
Oh, yeah, just say Zendaya, dude.
We'll just call her Z. Okay, we'll just call her Z. It's something like that. At this point, the next day, Caylee Anthony gets arrested. She decides to lead the investigators on this wild goose chase, because she says, well, the last time I saw her, which was a month prior or something, was at her nanny's house at this apartment. So she takes them to this apartment. They find out, and then she says that she's working at Universal Studios and all this stuff. She takes them to this apartment, and then they find out that no one has even been living there since February or something. And they're like, why are you lying? So they arrest her, charge her with child neglect, lying to investigators, and interfering with an investigation, right? A couple days later,
yes,
she's officially declared a person of interest at a bond hearing, because she's still in jail, right?
Yeah.
So at this hearing, they introduced a cadaver dog, and they had said the cadaver dog zeroed in on some horrible odor of human decomposition in the back of the trunk that was at the impound, like Caylee Anthony's car. And the dog smelled like human decomp in the backyard of the Anthony's home. So,
Damn.
yeah. And then at this point, which the dates are kind of weird because so many of the pages have like a little bit of different dates, like just by 1 or 2 days or something. But Cindy, the mom, said like actually they had seen Caylee after June 9th. Like that's what they know at this point, right? They ended up holding Caylee Anthony on these minor charges that she's charged with at the time. And just because the judge is like, I'm a little disturbed. This is enough evidence for me to say like you did something bad. So I'm going to set the bail at $500,000 if you want to get out until, you go to trial. So on August 20th, which is like a month later, there's this bail bondsman named Leonard, and he's like a bounty hunter. He says, okay.
He's like, I'm the dog, the big bad dog.
Really, and he comes in and he goes, I'm gonna post bail. I'll pay the bail for Caylee Anthony because I think if we get her out, she can lead us to where Caylee is. So that's his belief. 10 days later,
that was a lie.
He takes that shit back. So the bond is rescinded. This only happens, though, they only rescind the bond after they've realized that, Caylee Anthony has been stealing and cashing checks from someone else, like from a friend. And then at, like, the Anthony family home, there was, like, obviously protesters, basically. There was huge crowds of people outside of their house saying bad things. So when this guy, like, bailed her out, he said that, like, I gave it my best shot. She still wouldn't talk to me. Like, what can I say? Like, there's nothing I can do. And so she ends up staying in jail, but they're like, well, at this point, like, she's going to be returned to jail anyway, so just leave her be. So then, like, the trial actually starts. There was all kinds of crazy shit that happens during the trial because there's, like, evidence. I don't know. So I'll go ahead and read the evidence first. But the trial was, like, 31 days worth of trial. Dude, that's a lot of time.
A month? Damn, bro. They missed the whole month of May. They missed the Cinco de Mayo, dude, my mom's birthday. I just
Cinco de Mayo. I'm like, this was in October, but I mean, it's fine. So anyways, they go through this trial, and on October 24th, this is where they, like, the forensic reports from examining Caylee Anthony's car is released and all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and read, like, the forensic analysis of the stuff that they had found that were trying to prove that she murdered this kid, or someone obviously murdered the child. She didn't do this to herself. So this is where they are, like, just pulling up evidence, right? Hair was found in the trunk of Caylee Anthony's vehicle, right? This is weird because the theory that Caylee Anthony put Caylee in the trunk after subduing her with chloroform was, like, they were trying to prove that that's what happened. That if you don't have, like, the root, if I rip some hair off or cut the tips of my hair off or whatever and leave those, you can't technically prove that it's mine unless you have, like, the root of my hair, right?
Yeah, the hair follicle in the bottom.
Like the follicle, exactly. So the hair that was discovered in the car didn't have that root or the follicle, right?
Ooh.
So, and there was no tissue to prove exactly who it was. There was unknown hair sample in the trunk at this point. It did resemble, like, it had similarities to Caylee's hair sample that they actually had, but you cannot, like, confirm that it's, like, an exact match. So instead, they used mitochondrial DNA, which is, like, they can prove that it's from a certain lineage or if it's male or female. So when they tested it, it just doesn't individualize a person. So you can test it and say, okay, this is Lobato hair and it's a female, but that's all you can do. So that could be me or my sister or, someone like that. But they can't say this is Miranda's hair. Exactly. So that's what they did. They were like, well, we can tell that this hair does come directly from the Anthony's line and it's a female, but we can't say exactly who it is. So what do we do? But they could tell that the hair itself, it was from a decomposed body. So they displayed that in court, right?
Yeah.
Then they said, well, there's decomposition detection, which is, like, this is where that odor comes into play because they were saying, okay, it smells like there's a dead body back here. And there is basically this thing, and it was at the time, like, a newer test, right? And it was, like, called odor analysis. So they, like, disputed this a lot because the technique, it's, like, still lacking a little bit, right? But there's this guy who developed it. And he said, okay, out of all...
Who's going to slide on that machine, Miranda? That's what I want to know. If it's lacking, Who's going to slide on that machine? Tell me.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's lagging. I'm just going to say it was so new and it wasn't like technically accepted at the time by like the scientific community. So that's what I mean is like, it was new and people were like, could this really be, is this guy just crazy for creating this? But like the scientific community was like, it's a little up in the air. This guy, the doctor who creates this test, said he found 41 compounds out of 424 compounds that are associated with decomposition. So 41 of those were in her trunk. He said that nearly all the compounds, though, that are found in the early stages of a decomposing body were found in that like odor in the air in the trunk. So he tried to say like, look, there's however many that are at the early stages, all of them are found. They're all here. And people are like, we don't know about this guy. He's a little silly. Like that's basically how they treated him.
Of course, bro. See, they probably villainized him. Like he's trying to prove that this girl is an animal and she's not.
That's exactly how they acted, though. And this is too. Keep in mind that the dogs had already smelled the dead body in the back of the trunk too. Plus, they found all those compounds in the air that are consistent with the decomposing body. And then they're like, well, it is what it is. Like that's what it seems like, right? When you pull up all this evidence and they're like, I don't know. And then hear this with like the decomposition stuff. So not only did this odor analysis by Dr. Voss was his name, but the FBI lab, they do the same thing, right? So they're like, well, we'll do our own little test of the air with like this mass spectrometer. We've all heard it in like different like, bones and stuff like, oh, the mass spec, we hear it all the time. That tech who did the test was able to isolate compounds, and 67% of those, dude, were associated with human decomposition. So there was obviously a dead body in the back of this car, right?
Someone was lying and someone was fibbing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the same thing, right?
Yeah, so they're the same, but I mean, or know what you meant. The other thing that was sus, dude, is one of the compounds found in that trunk was chloroform. And not just a little, like excessive amounts of chloroform were found like in the air and stuff.
So just quick theory, since you said that, right? And you said that maybe she chloroformed her. What if, like, you're only supposed to hold the rag for a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if she, like, excessively held the rag on her until, like, she passed out and just kept on holding it, and then she breathed enough fumes? Like, because people either get knocked out or you die, right? It's like one or the other. It's like when you put someone in a chokehold and then you're, like, choking them, like... there's a 50-50 chance that he might either get knocked out or that the blood to his brain stopped flowing and he dies. So what if that happened? She just choked her with it instead of a...
Well, and that's like one of the theories that they have is like, well, maybe she just overdid it with the chloroform. But why would the fuck was she chloroforming a baby in the first place? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So another thing of evidence that they brought in was a stained paper towel. So there was a paper towel found, and it had like a big amount of like fly pupa, so like little baby flies, like eggs and larvae and shit all over it, dude.
Yeah.
So the cause of the stain on the paper towel was this stuff that I can't pronounce. It's a science word, but they also call it like grave wax is what it's called. And it's like a breakdown of fat. So it's like that nasty stuff that like comes out of our body after we die and you're just like rotting for a while, right?
Yeah.
So that was all over this paper towel with all kinds of like fly larvae and stuff. So that, okay. And they said, well, like it can also be found in the garbage though. So, and there was a trash bag back there.
Oh my God. So like, their defense was that it was just garbage in the back of the trunk. It wasn't an actual body.
But it could have been anything from the garbage. Yeah, is like what they're saying. So then they bring in.
See, you know, one thing I hate is hate's a strong word, right? I've been saying hate a lot. I'm gonna stop saying that because I ain't a hateful person, huh?
Well, it depends what you were gonna say hate about. Tell me first.
I dislike, there's reasonable people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's people that like, how do I say, everything's literal.
Yeah, and then it's like I know what you mean.
They don't understand, and then how do I say, they're almost like robots because they can't comprehend how you live your life is different to how they live their life.
So the next thing that they present is like this Dr. Voss guy who I was still telling you about earlier, who created that like odor test.
Yes.
He also found high levels of chloroform. So it was never proved though whether the chloroform was like a result of just stuff being spilled in the trunk carpet or if it was from like the dead body. Like that's literally
who would spill chloroform on the floor.
Exactly.
Who would
Exactly.
waste it? No, just kidding. No.
Why are you wasting the chloroform? There's a lot like of other stuff that it's just like, come on. So this next part, they submitted into evidence insect activity, right? So there was the presence of 3 different bugs which thrive off of dead bodies. Like that's what they're known for. They love to munch on dead bodies. I don't know, that's just what they do. So they like introduced an expert witness who said, "Hey, this is what these bugs are. This is what they like to feed off of. They're always going to be present when there's a dead body outside in this part of the world, whatever, right?" So the defense also like supplied, I don't know, I was going to say produced, but they like supplied their own, expert witness here
Of
who said,
course.
well, these insects aren't only associated with
Bugs were only found in Costa Rica.
no, like basically is what he does. He goes, these aren't only like associated with dead bodies, but they are also like they like trash bags, human garbage. So the presence of these insects doesn't necessarily confirm that there was a decomposing. I want to keep saying decomposition, and I don't know why. A decomposing body in the trunk. So yeah, and then here's where they failed, dude. Is that they had all these larvae and pupa and adult insects found in these trash bags and in the trunk. They didn't check like the gut contents of the bugs. So they didn't even look in the maggots and see if there was human flesh, nothing. They didn't check
Anything.
inside of them. No, they were just like, oh, but the bugs are thrown away. Whoops. So if they had just done that, this could have made a big
So
difference, don't you
see,
think?
like when I said someone was lying, someone was fibbing. So a lot of people didn't do their job.
Yeah.
Is what we're hearing from all this.
Mm-hmm.
The people from Bones, all of them would have been fired.
They literally said that like the gut contents weren't tested for DNA, so they can't give a definitive answer or anything.
And they were just like, well, Joe wasn't in that day.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, well, the guy wasn't there, so the bugs died, and we had to throw them away. Like that's how they act, right? So here's another piece of evidence, dude, that it's like, are you effing kidding me? So there was some cyber evidence, is what we'll call it. They got a search warrant for Caylee Anthony's laptop so they could investigate it. In the recent searches, dude, one of them was self-defense, and the other one was chloroform in her recent searches.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they like put these in to court and presented them, and they said, okay, they were trying to prove that it was like a premeditated type of murder and not just an accident, right?
Yeah.
So besides the history being recovered from her laptop, which they said this place is either Caylee Anthony or Cindy Anthony, the mom, were performing these searches, they couldn't prove that, obviously, because it's not like the computer's recording you, right? During the like cross-examination.
Not yet.
Yeah. So during the cross-examination of all of this whole situation, Cindy Anthony, Casey's mom, was like, it was me. I searched that on the laptops. But the timestamps proved that, like, that's highly unlikely that you were even.
They're like, we actually have your phone records here, and it says you were at this spot, and this isn't the same area.
Literally, that's what they did. They said, well, the timestamps at her work proved that, like, she was at work and she wasn't at the laptop when this stuff was searched, so.
She was like, but that's my babe.
Yeah, so she's, like, at this point, like, defending her daughter is what it seems like. The other piece of evidence that they put in is that there was duct tape, but the duct tape was attached to Caylee Anthony's skull. And they were like, okay, was this a murder weapon? Was this used as a murder weapon? I don't know. They did have like an animation that they showed in court to kind of display like what could have happened. They said that like the piece of duct tape could have covered her mouth and nose at the same time, and she could have like suffocated from it. But Caylee Anthony's lawyers were like, okay, that's not true, because when you like decompose all the way, like your lower jaw like disconnects from like the top of your head, right? It's like a whole different piece, so it'll just like fall off. That's why skulls
because there's
aren't
only
found with, like,
cartilage is only holding your
yeah,
jaw.
and like your muscle and everything. That's what's holding our jaw up. It's like disconnected from our skull, so it can like fall off when we decompose, right? It was still connected.
Don't vape. That's what happens when you vape.
Yeah.
Your jaw falls off. Look
Or
it up
smoke
if you don't
cigarettes.
believe me.
But it was still connected. So they said, the defense did, when they were trying to like defend Caylee Anthony, they were saying, okay, well, it actually wasn't the duct tape. The reason her lower jaw was still connected is because of like the connective tissue was still a little bit there. The hair and the leaf litter and like all that stuff was just still out there, and that's why it stayed attached. the fuck? Like, why are you? I don't know. This is all just crazy. The whole
It's
thing
like they
is
were
just
trying
crazy.
to like get the spotlight away from Casey,
Yeah,
like blame it all on like shit
yeah,
that don't happen in real life.
yeah. I don't know. It was literally just crazy. Just listening and reading all this, I'm like,
Skeptical people, bro, is what I meant to say
mhm.
earlier.
Well, and like in all of these same cases, I just come back to thinking like the person who committed the crimes. You know, we've got Casey Anthony and OJ, and they're basically one and the same at this point. And they're just out there walking the streets. They can have kids and have wives and do whatever they want. You know, is basically like
Unless
what it is.
you're a good American citizen and you see this person, you kick them out of your restaurant, you know?
Yeah. I mean, she lives in Florida now. Like she's out of jail, right? Because we'll keep
Of
going with the
course they live
story.
in Florida, bro. Of course she lives in Florida. They get away
Hmm.
from all her persecutions.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing to me is just this whole story is just messed up. So we'll go back to the case now. So I've given you all the evidence that they presented in court, right? October 14th, 2008. That's when the whole trial started. Then the skeletal remains of Caylee are finally found. Because keep in mind, up until this point, until December of 2008, they have not found Caylee's body. They have no idea if she's dead, if she's alive. I mean, we obviously assume she's dead based on all the evidence, but nobody knows where she's at. So, December 11th, 2008, that's when they're found. This guy named Ray Kronk is the one who found them. When she was found, she was actually found wrapped in a Winnie the Pooh blanket and stuffed in plastic bags, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. So because
She
she
was
was,
just left out there with,
yeah.
how do I say, just to rot.
Hmm. And there was like no way for them at this point. She had been out missing. Her body had been decomposing since what, June, at least that we know of, maybe July. So there was no way for them to like say what the cause of death was besides the duct tape, because there was 3 separate pieces of duct tape apparently like on the face. So it could have been covering her nose, her mouth. But was she dead before the duct tape went on? Like, was she chloroformed and then duct tape? Like, what? We will never, literally, we will never know what happened to her unless Casey Anthony tells the truth, or whoever did it tells the truth. I'm assuming it was Casey, though. She just seems
She just
guilty,
comes
you
out
know?
with the book like, I didn't kill my baby, but if I did,
But if I did, this is what I would have done. Like, that's basically what she did. So,
what OJ did, bro. Like same situation.
exact same situation, dude. So then we talk about the guy who found her body, right? So this is
He's
where
dead. No, I'm just kidding.
actually I don't know if he's dead or alive, but the story is weird. So he was actually just like a meter reader in that area. This is 4 months before, so keep in mind, this is like in August of 2008. He had like been in the area with some of his coworkers, and there was like a wooded area over by Casey Anthony's family's house, right? He had seen what he thought was like a skull or something. He said he was like 99% sure, but they didn't touch it or anything. And he said that like his 2 colleagues that were with him like got all freaked out, and they were like, "Oh, let's leave." So they left. And then apparently, like the next day, this guy, Ray, he calls 911 and says, "Hey, I think like I found a body in the woods. Like I'm pretty freaked out." So he said that the officer like met him there and like looked both ways and was like, "I don't see shit." And then like berated him for like half an hour and said like, "Oh, you've wasted my time, blah 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 blah," and didn't find anything. But this guy also didn't like go look and be like, "It's right here" or anything. So that's when that happens. 4 months later, which was December 11th, that's when he went back to the area. He went to the same part of the woods, and he saw the skull there. And like he said that he got a stick, picked up a stick, and like poked the right eye socket and like moved it back and forth just to see. And then he in court said like, "I really apologize for doing that. I just didn't know what it was, and I never lifted it off the ground." So I don't know. He said that there was like a bags there, and he like lifted it off the ground, and then the skull fell out of it apparently. But like, so that's what's weird to me, is because it literally says that he saw it, poked it in the thing, like in the eye socket. But then in a separate story, he says, "Well, I don't remember exactly what happened. I picked up a bag and it had fallen out," and like, I don't know. So basically, he found it, calls 911. They do all these tests to confirm that it's Caylee Anthony's remains, and it was in her own blankie, which is like so sad to think about. But yeah. So then they're like, okay, if Casey Anthony gets found guilty, she's going to face the death penalty in Florida at the time. So she's just hoping and praying that she doesn't get caught, is basically how I felt about it.
Dude, I saw some interviews because, like I said, this is an old case.
Yeah.
And like I remember this case when I was younger too, because it was like all the talk on the TV for like months, like 2 or 3 months for sure. Even the Spanish news was like that too. And all I see from this chick is like when they're interviewing her, it's always about her. She don't give two craps about her kid.
She doesn't. And she's very much like she doesn't have any emotion like in her eyes. She'll cry and stuff, but she just looks like weird. And I remember when she got out of prison, people had like started seeing her out in public and taking pictures of her. And she did an interview and they said, "Are you gonna have more kids?" And she was like, "I'd like to. Like, I mean, I'm not against having more kids." Like, it was just very weird. So then we come to some more theories because there were some weird theories that started going around. Because it's like, okay, at this point, after they had found the body and everything, Caylee Anthony is found not guilty in court, dude.
Somehow
She's found not guilty. So they end up like letting her go because she is found guilty on 4 misdemeanors, which was lying to police and then like child endangerment or neglect or something. And I can't remember, child abuse. There was like 4 misdemeanors that she was charged with. So she got sentenced to 1 year for each of them. Then when she gets like let out, the judge is like, well, so the judge did give her the maximum sentence that he could. And people were surprised because most people don't get like prison time for misdemeanors, right? It's pretty rare. But he actually ordered her to 4 years. And then he also gave her time served, which that put her at that time, since she had been in there this whole time, that made, so well, since you've already been in for 3 years and you had good behavior, then you only owe us 10 more days in prison and then you can go free. Mm-hmm.
Whoever these people were that said that this chick wasn't guilty, that judge, I don't know what crack you guys were smoking.
Mm-hmm. That's how I feel too, dude. So yeah, then she just like gets out. And you guys want to hear the worst news of it all? Because of double jeopardy is what they call it. It prevents a person from being tried again for the same crime, following that they get like a valid acquittal or conviction. You know, so like if he's acquitted of a crime or if she's convicted of the crime, you can't take them back to court and take them back to trial for the same thing. So because she was found not guilty, they cannot ever go back after her for the charges, in this case, related to her daughter's death.
Some bull crap is what all I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's like shocking to even hear that. It's shocking to say it out loud.
Because it doesn't sound real, like how the whole court case came out. It's literally like if it was like a cartoon or some show we're watching on TV, some case that you're hoping she gets the death penalty and at the end she just gets let off free, scot-free. Apart from that.
Mm-hmm. So you think, all right, this is just like the OJ case where we said, all right, OJ, maybe he killed his wife and then he gets like let go and whatever, and it's like, okay, so now he's just let go. So why is no one searching for the killer? And I quote, then if it wasn't him. Same shit here, dude. So they're like, oh, she's not guilty. So then everyone just stops looking for the killer because
justice is served.
Yeah, like what? Like this makes no sense, right? It just makes no sense that they're just like, oh well. So then it got me Googling. I said, okay, if Casey didn't kill Caylee, then who did, right? So in trial, her lawyer, Jose Baez, that's what his name was. He had this huge opening statement, and he said that because people kept saying, well, maybe the death
does not fit. No, I'm just kidding.
Literally, that's what it was. So they kept saying like, okay, well, it was George, the dad. Like people were accusing George of doing it, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then, you know what freaking Jose Baez says? He says, okay, well, actually, what if it was the meter reader, Roy? What if it, was it Ray or Roy? I can't remember. Anyways, what if it was him? Maybe he found Caylee's body and then he moved it. Or maybe he did it in the first place because he was in the area and he did something bad to her. And then when they put out a reward for finding her remains, maybe he just moved the body that second time. And then he was like, oh, I stumbled upon her remains.
Damn,
so they start saying that stuff too. I find that I don't think that would be the case if I had to, just from the evidence. I highly doubt that is what happened, but who knows? The other theory that they had was what yours was the chloroform.
Yeah.
Thing. That she accidentally used too much chloroform. But that still doesn't mean, oh, well, maybe it was just an accident with chloroform. Why the hell were you using chloroform? This isn't an excuse.
I feel like you specifically have to buy chloroform. That's not a household project you have.
Or make it. You can make it, I think. Something like that. Yeah. But remember, she had Googled it. So she actually searched for not just chloroform, but she searched for the exact phrase how to make chloroform.
Oh my God.
And then you're gonna be like, nah, wasn't her. But then they found chloroform in her trunk with decomposing compounds from a body. Like, okay, she's
With
not
juices spilling out
guilty.
and stuff.
Makes
What
absolutely
do
no
you
sense.
think, Miranda? What do you think? Tell me.
Well, there's a couple other things that people said, and I want to know if you think any of these could be true.
Okay.
Because the other one said that so this is actually, the lawyer said this in the courtroom too. He said, well, nobody killed her. She accidentally drowned in the family's pool. Okay, so why is he saying all these lies and then like still defending her? It makes no sense, right? So then, well, okay, he also said, like, why would a mother wait 30 days before reporting a child missing? That's insane. That's bizarre. What the hell's going on? I don't know. They said the theory was that Caylee Anthony's dad, George, found Caylee drowned and dead in the pool, and then he told Casey, like, I'll take care of it. And then they pulled this whole thing trying to blame her dad. Like, her own lawyer was like, it was the dad, and tried to blame it on him. And then they pulled up Casey's like childhood trauma. And were like, oh, he touched her as a kid and like all this crazy stuff, dude. And they tried to make it seem like he did this, which is completely possible too, I guess. Like, I don't know. I think it was either the grandpa or Casey. It had to be one of them, and I think they both know the truth, and they're both hiding it, is what I believe.
For sure, it's like something that's they're gonna take that to the grave.
Yeah. Yep. I think it was one of those two for sure. Because if it was the grandma, why would she be the one to be like, the car smells like dead body, and I am freaked out because I haven't seen my grandbaby, you know? I don't know. I just think that's all weird.
No, I feel that. I would blame just a bad parenting.
100%. So the last theory that I could find was that that original nanny that I was telling you about, who they were like,
yeah,
oh, at our house, right? Her name was like Z something. Casey called her Zanny the nanny. That's what she called her. And so when she was like in that month in between, you know, the last time that the grandparents had seen Caylee alive and then being reported missing, Casey would like talk to her parents and say, well, she's with Zanny the nanny. She's fine. I'm going to go out with my friend. And she literally kept calling her Zanny the nanny, right? Damn. So there was this other podcaster. His name's Marcus Parks. His theory was that maybe when he's saying Zanny the nanny, maybe he was just giving her like, she was giving actual the kids Xanax. Because his theory was like, okay, well, you know, on the streets, people call Xanax Zanny. So maybe she was referring to like, don't worry, she's with Zanny the nanny. And she was just giving her some Xanax and like letting her sleep while she went out and did whatever. And then one of the times she just gave her a little too much and she didn't wake up. So then she had to like hide it so she wouldn't get in trouble. And I think that theory is pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And one of the FBI agents had said like the same duct tape theory was that like, since there was so much duct tape on her face, maybe she used it to just like tape her up and tie her down. That way she didn't have to watch her. And then she just ended up suffocating. Like maybe it was an accident. They also, I forgot about this part. They had a freaking bug expert come in and testify that the body had actually been moved based on like the bugs and the growth and like all this stuff.
Ooh, so it gets spicy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for sure she did it. Either she overdosed the baby or like she chloroformed her and then taped her up. So just because she probably thought she killed her, right? She taped her up thinking that she was dead and she probably suffocated when she woke up.
Yeehaw, brother.